Welcome to this deep dive. You sent over some excerpts from a textbook all about social research methods.
Oh, that's great.
Looks like someone's about to start a research project.
Yeah, that sounds exciting.
We'll help you through the material and all that.
We'll be your guides.
That's it.
We'll help you get a feel for all the different ways to approach research
Yeah.
and the pluses and minuses of each.
Yeah.
And then, most importantly, how to design your research effectively.
This book talks about two totally different ways to do research right off the bat.
Uh-huh.
Quantitative and qualitative.
Yeah.
Can you break those down
Sure.
for our listener?
So think about, if you're studying the impact of a new park in a city,
Okay.
a quantitative researcher would maybe do a survey.
Yeah.
Ask the residents to, rate their, satisfaction with the park
Yeah.
on a scale of 1 to 5.
1 to 5.
And then they would crunch the numbers.
Okay.
See if there's any connections. Like if park usage and happiness are related.
So they're looking for patterns in the numbers.
Exactly.
Okay.
But a qualitative researcher,
Yeah.
they might just go hang out at the park
Oh, well.
and watch people,
Interesting.
see how they're using it.
Okay.
Or they might interview people,
Yeah.
get their personal stories about what the park means to them.
So it's less about the hard numbers and more about understanding what it's like.
Yeah.
Different each person's perspective.
It's all about understanding those individual experiences
Mhm.
and which approach is better.
Yeah.
It really depends on what you want to know.
Yeah, that makes sense.
What are your goals for the research?
What are you trying to learn?
Exactly.
Something else that caught my eye
Yeah.
was how the book talks about theory and research being related,
Uh-huh.
deductive
Yeah.
and inductive
Right.
approaches.
Yeah.
Feels kind of like,
Which one comes first?
yeah, the chicken and the egg.
Exactly. It is a little bit like that.
Yeah.
Deductive research starts with the theory. People with access to green spaces are happier.
Okay.
And then you'd go and design a study to see if that's actually true.
So you're going in with a guess, and then you look for evidence to support it or not.
Yeah, you have your hypothesis and you're looking for proof.
Okay.
Inductive is the opposite.
Yeah.
You might just start by watching people in the park.
Okay.
And you notice, the parents with little kids seem less stressed
Okay.
when they're there.
Interesting.
And from that observation,
Yeah.
you might then develop a theory
Okay.
about how green spaces could impact parents' well-being.
Interesting.
So it's the other way around.
You're building a theory based on what you see.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so you have to figure out which way makes sense for you
Right.
if you're doing research.
Are you trying to prove something that's already out there?
Yeah,
Or are you starting from scratch?
with more open-ended questions.
Right, more exploratory.
Now let's get into the actual nuts and bolts of designing a research project. The book talks about things like internal validity, measurement validity,
Yeah.
and sampling methods.
Right.
Can you break down those ideas and why they're important?
So think of it like building a house, right?
Okay.
You got to have a good foundation.
Yeah.
Internal validity is about making sure your research is actually measuring what you want it to measure.
So back to the park example.
Yeah.
If you find that people who use the park are happier, you have to be sure it's the park making them happy
Right.
and not something else,
Yeah, what else is going on?
like the weather.
Exactly. Good weather makes everyone happy.
Yeah.
Measurement validity is all about making sure your tools are accurate.
Yeah.
So if you're measuring happiness,
Mm-hmm.
you got to be sure your questions are really getting at happiness
Yeah.
and not just satisfaction with the park's amenities.
That's it.
You wouldn't use a ruler to measure weight.
You need the right tool for the job.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then there's sampling, which is choosing the right ingredients for your recipe.
Yeah.
You want your sample to really reflect the whole group you're studying.
So if you're studying what city residents think about the park,
Right.
you can't just interview people who live next door
No, you need people from all over.
from all over the city.
Yeah, a diverse sample that represents the whole city.
Okay.
And then there's this thing called sampling error,
Okay.
which is the chance that your sample isn't perfect,
Yeah.
even if you try really hard.
So it's kind of like a reminder that research isn't always perfect.
Yeah, even the best research has its limits.
Okay.
But understanding all this stuff helps you make those limitations as small as possible.
Now let's talk about the tools that researchers use
Okay.
to collect data.
Yeah.
The book talks about a bunch structured interviews,
Right.
questionnaires,
Yes.
structured observation,
Right.
and content analysis.
Right.
What are the big differences?
Right.
And when would you use each one?
It really depends on what you're trying to figure out.
Yeah.
Let's say you want to understand how teenagers use social media.
Okay.
Structured interviews would let you have deep conversations with them.
Okay.
Really dig into what's going on.
So you could figure out why they use social media,
Yeah,
what they're worried about,
exactly.
how they see it fitting into their lives,
Yes.
that kind of thing.
But questionnaires would be better if you need to talk to a lot of people.
Yeah,
Like, you could ask hundreds of teens about their habits on social media.
that makes sense.
That would be way more efficient.
What about structured observation?
Oh, that would be like watching teenagers in their natural habitat, maybe
Okay.
at the mall or something,
Okay.
to see how social media affects their real-life interactions.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And content analysis.
Yeah.
Could you use that to study social media?
Absolutely.
Right.
You could look at their posts,
Okay.
see if there are any trends in what they're talking about, or how they present themselves online.
So you're looking for patterns again,
Yeah,
whether it's words or pictures or how people act.
exactly.
Okay.
Each method kind of gives you a different lens to understand the same thing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So you have to pick the right one for the job.
We've talked about a lot
We have.
different ways to think about research,
Uh-huh.
how to design a study,
Right.
even the tools to use.
Yeah.
It's like we've built a foundation.
Yeah, we've laid the groundwork.
But what about the ethical side of research?
That's huge.
Yeah.
Researchers have to protect the people they're studying.
Have
That's
to.
their responsibility. You
Yes.
can't just do whatever you want.
Right. There are rules,
Absolutely.
ethical guidelines.
You got to be ethical.
Yeah, that's really important. Okay, so we've talked about collecting data,
Yeah.
but how do you actually make sense of it all?
Right.
Especially with qualitative research,
Mm-hmm.
where you have all these interviews and observations.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's where qualitative data analysis comes in.
Oh, okay.
It's a whole process.
Yeah.
And one of the key things is this idea of coding.
Coding.
Yeah.
Like computers.
Not exactly.
Okay.
Imagine you've interviewed like a bunch of teachers
Okay.
about their experience using some new tech in the classroom.
Right.
So you've got like hours of recordings,
Yeah.
pages and pages of notes.
Right. How do you even begin to?
It can be overwhelming,
Yeah.
but you start by just reading through the transcripts
Okay.
and like highlighting anything that stands out.
Okay.
Keywords,
Yeah.
phrases, ideas that keep coming up.
Okay.
Maybe you notice a lot of teachers are saying they feel overwhelmed
Okay.
or like they don't have enough support
Yeah.
or that the students are getting distracted.
Uh-huh.
So those become your initial codes.
Okay, so you're kind of like labeling things.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And then as you go through more and more interviews,
Yeah.
you might start seeing patterns.
Yeah.
Like maybe feeling overwhelmed
Huh.
and lack of support.
Yeah.
They both kind of fit under this bigger idea
Yeah.
of like challenges with implementation.
Okay.
So you're grouping the codes together.
It's like organizing a messy room.
Right.
You start by sorting things into piles,
Exactly.
and then you get a better sense of what you have.
You start to see the big picture.
And are there like different ways to do this coding thing?
Oh, yeah, there are.
Okay.
Sometimes you just kind of let the themes emerge from the data
Okay.
as you go.
Uh-huh.
Other times you might start with some pre-existing theories
Okay.
to guide your analysis.
So like in the teacher example,
Yeah.
if you already thought that new tech means more work for teachers,
Mm-hmm.
you might specifically look for evidence to back that up.
Right. You'd be looking for quotes or examples that
Hmm.
support that idea.
But you also have to be open to other things you find.
Of course.
Right.
Even if they challenge your initial assumptions.
So maybe some teachers found that the new tech actually saved them time.
Right. That's possible.
Okay.
So you have to be flexible. Let
Yeah.
the data lead you.
Don't just try to prove your point.
Exactly. It's about really understanding what's going on.
Not just confirming what you already believe.
Right. You have to be open to being surprised.
Okay, now all this sounds pretty time-consuming.
It can be.
Yeah.
Qualitative analysis takes time.
Are there any tools to help?
Oh, yeah, there are.
Okay.
There are these software programs called CAQIAs,
Okay.
which stands for Computer-Assisted Qualitative Data Analysis Software.
Wow, that's a mouthful.
I know, right?
Kakita.
CAQIAs.
Yeah.
So it's basically all...
It's like a helping hand.
Yeah,
It's not going to do the analysis for you,
right.
but it can help you organize your data,
Yeah.
code things,
Okay.
search for patterns,
Uh-huh.
create visuals of your findings.
Okay.
It can be really useful.
So technology can be powerful,
Yeah.
but you still need a human to guide it. Absolutely. You need a skilled researcher.
To make sense of it all.
Right, to interpret the findings.
Okay. And speaking of tools,
Yeah.
we've talked a lot about qualitative and quantitative research
Uh-huh.
as if they're totally separate.
Right.
But sometimes it's good to use both.
Oh, absolutely. It's like using both a hammer and a screwdriver
Yeah.
to build something complex.
You need the right tools for the job.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's called mixed methods research.
Mixed methods.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's becoming more and more popular.
So like back to the teachers.
Yeah.
You could combine interviews
Uh-huh.
with a survey.
Right?
to get both those deep perspectives
Yeah.
and some hard numbers
Exactly.
about how teachers feel about the technology.
You could see if there are any statistical relationships, like
Right.
between years of experience and comfort with the new tech,
Okay.
and then use the interviews to dig deeper.
Yeah.
Understand why those patterns exist.
So you get a more complete picture.
Right, a richer understanding.
By combining different types of data.
Yeah, it's powerful stuff.
And are there different ways to do mixed methods research?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Sometimes you start with qualitative data to come up with ideas
Okay.
and then test them quantitatively.
Okay.
Other times you start with numbers
Yeah.
and then use qualitative methods to understand what they mean.
So it's all about finding the best approach
Right.
for your research question.
Exactly. It's all about the question.
We've covered a lot,
We have.
from the basics of qualitative research to the nitty-gritty techniques,
Yeah.
and even this idea of mixing methods.
Fixed methods, yeah.
But what happens
What's next?
when you're done analyzing the data?
Then you move into the crucial step of communication.
Okay.
You got to write it all up.
We've talked about all sorts of things.
Yeah.
Different ways to approach research.
Uh-huh.
Nuts and bolts of designing a study,
Right?
analyzing data.
Yeah.
It's been a real journey.
It has.
But what happens after all that?
Oh, yeah. Good question.
How do researchers actually share what they've learned?
So that's where writing up the research comes in.
Okay.
It's not just about summarizing what you found.
Uh-huh.
It's about telling a story with the data,
Okay, I like that.
making it clear and engaging for people to read.
So what makes a research report good?
Well, like any good story, it needs a clear structure.
Yeah.
A lot of times you start with an introduction.
Okay.
That kind of sets the stage,
Yeah.
explains why this research even matters.
Right, you gotta hook the reader.
Exactly. Grab their attention.
What comes next?
Then you usually have a literature review
Okay.
where you basically go through all the existing research
Uh-huh.
on that same topic.
Okay.
It shows you've done your homework,
Yeah.
and it kind of puts your study in context.
So you're not just presenting your findings all by themselves.
Right. It's all connected.
You're showing how they fit into the bigger picture.
Yeah, you're having a conversation with other researchers.
Okay, then what?
Then you get into the methods section,
Okay.
where you basically lay out exactly how you did the research.
So other people could, copy it?
Well, yeah, in theory they could,
Okay.
but it's really about being transparent
Okay.
so people can understand how you got your results.
And then you get to the good stuff.
The results.
Yeah.
That's the heart of it.
This is where you actually say what you found.
Yeah, you present the findings.
Clearly and concisely.
Right. You don't want to bore people.
And you might use, charts and graphs.
Oh, yeah. Visuals can be really helpful
Yeah.
to help people understand the data.
Okay, and then what?
Then you usually have a discussion section
Okay.
where you kind of connect the dots.
Okay.
You talk about what your findings actually mean.
Yeah.
You link them back to that literature review.
Uh-huh.
And you discuss, what are the implications of this?
Okay.
You also talk about any limitations of your study.
Right, because no study is perfect.
Yeah, there are always limitations.
Okay, so it's not just about presenting the facts.
Yeah.
It's about thinking critically about what they mean.
Exactly. Reflecting on the significance of it all.
And then you wrap it all up.
The conclusion.
Yeah.
You sum everything up.
The key takeaways.
Right, the main points.
Okay.
And you might also suggest some ideas for future research.
So, where do we go from here?
Yeah, what are the next steps?
Wow, that sounds like a lot.
It is a process.
But it also sounds pretty rewarding.
Oh, it definitely is.
To get to share what you've learned with the world.
Yeah, it's exciting to contribute to knowledge.
And it reminds me that research isn't just for academics.
Right.
It's a way of thinking.
It's a mindset.
About approaching the world with curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
And being really careful about what you know.
Being rigorous
Yeah.
in how you gather information.
So all the stuff we've talked about in this deep dive
Yeah, all the skills.
can be used in so many different ways.
Absolutely.
From, figuring out if something you read online is true.
Right, evaluating information.
To doing your own research project.
Yeah, even if it's not for a class.
We've covered so much.
I know, it's been a lot.
Different approaches to research,
Yeah.
how to actually design a study,
Right.
the art of analyzing data,
Yeah, the whole process.
even how to write it all up.
It's been quite a journey.
So to our listener,
Yeah.
as you start your own research journey,
Uh.
we want to encourage you to stay curious.
Yeah, keep that curiosity alive.
Keep asking questions.
And don't be afraid to dig deep.
That's it. Happy researching.
Happy researching.